Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metzen. We have a great guest in the studio for the whole show tonight. A fabulous musician, happens to be an old buddy of mine. I grew up in Virginia, Minnesota. He grew up just a few miles away in Parkville, which was between Virginia and the great town of Mountain Iron, home of Mintac, where they got all the taconite out of for the last 50 years or so, and before that. Keith Scola, thanks for being here. I know you've got just one more day in town, but I really appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, I appreciate to be able to come here and play the music and the Wall of Power, man.
Hey, let's just do it. You brought your guitar. Play us a tune.
This is the one I just recorded with our friends there. That we recorded the
TV show,
flute and the voice.
Oh, great!
Jeremy and I and Adam. It's called Every Day's Christmas. Every day's Christmas, every day's New Year's, Halloween and Valentine's Day, Hanukkah and Earth Day, Mother's Day and Father's Day, every day's Indigenous Day. You and I were meant to be on the same side, upon the same ride, forever in our dreams. This is the part where you make some sound effects. On the same page, about the same age, forever in our dream. Every day's Christmas, every day's New Year's, every day's a holiday and cheers, banquet, your birthday, every day's a new day, every day's the best day of the year. You and I were meant to be on the same side, upon the same ride, forever in our dream. You and I was meant to be. Gin dash nin dash gin, forever in our dream, forever in our dream.
That was fabulous. I was honored to watch you record that a couple of weeks ago before your show at the Astor Cafe. Now, this is going to be airing in a couple of weeks. Is this the worldwide debut of that tune?
Actually, live, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
all
been
right.
kind of in the underground a little bit. I got all the words. I've kind of massaged the words lately in lyrics to include every day's Indigenous Day.
Right.
But it could be as metaphysical as possible.
Right.
Everything could be included,
Sure.
and that's the idea of that song, like.
Well, you know what I loved about, Keith, you and I have known each other for over 40 years, and I knew you as a musician. You used to play in my brother's band, the Schwartz Brothers, and but you really, over the years, have really investigated, and you're imbibed with the spirit of your Native American roots. So tell us, when you were growing up on the range, what was your first experience with your Native culture?
Well, I got a picture when I was about 8 months old. Was my grandfather from my mom, Jimmy Webb. He was from the Hungry Heart Reserve, and Anishinaabe man who I grew up around. And so those are some of the earliest things I could remember. Some songs and the way he was, and the mannerisms of the culture, being immersed in it from that, sitting right on his lap. I got an old picture of it. It's one of my favorite ones. And so you come up around the environment of it. You don't realize, like, oh, we're doing traditional things, like you're going out ricing or something, or you're going out berry picking. It's just like a matter of going out there with Bucko Snyder, something like that. But it is something that was of a traditional thing.
Right.
And so you become aware of these things, I guess, afterwards, when you become aware of what is culture or anything like that, because it was just a way of life, I think, the immersion. Right. And even the language was around. And so I remember early on, I grew up on the streets of Fort Francis, out in Net Lake. On Pelican Lake, I slaughtered crappies in Myrtle Lake. And then the Iron Range, I experienced first love kind of thing, all these things in northern Minnesota.
Right.
And those are the things where the Anishinaabe people were. And so it was always a thing. I mean, we'd have Blueberry Hills from Orr to Fort Francis, but not quite north to Ash River Trail up in there, in Ash Lake, where there was an Anishinaabe village where my grandmother had her seasonal village up there on that lake. And we'd have little hills where you knew there were berries,
right.
Where their fires would come through and things like that. And so early on, you learn about these things, and you're aware of these things in the culture, like that. And on the other hand, you become aware, like in sixth grade, when the over-romantification of songs like Cherokee People or something like that. Right. It's like, I don't know. Musically, I kind of thought it was kind of hokey anyways.
Right.
But then, like the whole thing, like pushing it down. So you do become aware of all these things growing up in northern Minnesota. It's impossible not to.
Now, when you said Bucko Snyder, Bucko was such a great nickname back then. Now, were you related to Bucko Sokola?
Yeah, he was my first cousin.
Okay. And I knew Bucko was one of the initial crop of hippies up there.
Yeah, he was very influential, and his mother was Clara Skinaway.
Okay.
And she could cook anything. She could cook turtles. She could cook traditional foods. She spoke fluent Ojibwa Indian, and she was a beautiful, beautiful woman. She would, summertime, she would cook up at Grand Portage at the Radisson Hotel, and Bucko would go up between there, and then up on Pelican, where they lived on Sugarbush, where they have land up there to this day. Bucko has land up there, and I grew up around. He grew up in Virginia, Minnesota.
Sure.
And same thing. I got a picture of me. Bucko was maybe 10 years younger than I, and I got a picture of him holding me as a little boy.
Cool.
And it was on the north side of Virginia.
That's where he grew up.
Yeah, and like we're right at the edge of town. And I remember going up there, and then when he would play football, we'd go to his football games in high school.
Yeah, he was a football player, the Virginia Blue Devils.
Yeah, he's number 32, played fullback. And I would go to games where I was young enough to know what the team was about, or know what the game was about by looking at the players on the team you liked.
Funny.
So if they're clapping, all right, yeah. Not really knowing what's going on.
It's funny, Keith, because I remember, I was in sports till about, 6th to 7th grade, but before I realized I play guitar a lot better than I skate, and I wasn't even playing guitar that well back then, but I still remember. For example, my friend David Curry was a couple years older than me. He was number 10 on the hockey team. I remember those numbers. You know what I mean? It's funny how you look back in time. We've got my buddy Keith Sokola on for the whole show tonight. Keith has got an amazing history of people he's played with in events he's supported. A lot of not only big rock and roll stars, but a lot of the heaviest people in the Native American scene. I can ask you real quick, 45 seconds left. I still refer to Indians. You know, to me, that's like, is that politically correct
you
anymore?
You could be more correct by saying Anishinaabe artists.
Okay.
You know, like in their language, and refer to them like we're going to have an Anishinaabe flute or something. And then halfway through is a native, is, you know, like halfway through that proper. But I think that's really the thing to do, is to ask a person what nation they are in.
Right, okay.
And just go right down to it.
Well, we've got Keith Secola on, and he's gonna. We have some more music, and he's gonna break out the flute. Stick around. We'll be back after these messages.
Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Cool. Yeah, that's what we'll do. All right, well, just once we start playing, just start it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. That was fun. That was my guest, Keith Secola, on flute. I was playing guitar. When I started recording the Wall of Power Radio Hour 5.5 years ago at the Minneapolis Media Institute, it used to be the old Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis studio, Flight Time studio. So I had the opportunity to play more often with my guests. But so Keith brought his guitar down, and I just put it in front of this microphone and played. We just played that off the top of our heads, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that the pentatonic scale is right there in the universe.
Absolutely. So, Keith, we were talking a little bit about how to refer to Native American musicians. So talk about how that all fits together.
Okay. A couple of years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I was playing at a music festival in southern Florida, and Chaka Khan was playing. And I went to the soundboard. I like to listen to her music and her voice and her whole thing, what she was about and who she is. And I was sitting at the soundboard, and she came to me and she says, she seen me right away, and she asked me, "Can I ask you a question?" And she said, "I got in trouble a few years back, and when I referred to a Native woman as a squaw." And I didn't mean to be disrespectful at all, but it came off that way. And she goes, "What's the proper way?" And I said, "You should ask what she's a part Blackfoot heritage." So I asked her, "Find out the name of the woman in Blackfoot, and that's the way you should refer to her." I told her the name Anishinaabe, and it's Ikwe. That's how you say woman. So to be respectful, say Ikwe. And she said that and learned that word. And she, went back to find out. Same thing when when you find out a Native artist, I think it's important for them to find out where they're from. It's important for them to share that, because it has a lot to do where their songs come from and who they are and things. And so by saying Anishinaabe is a more deeper understanding of Chippewa. Chippewa is a legal understanding of the Anishinaabe Indian. It's a legal binding word that binds us as Chippewa Indians in Minnesota.
Okay.
The Chippewa tribe of Dent Lake, the Chippewa tribe of all these is Chippewa. Not in Canada, right across the border, it's Ojibwa.
Okay.
Which is the same tribe. My relatives are on both sides of the border, brothers and sisters and things like that, and older in heritage.
Sure.
And so Ojibwa would refer to the language Ojibwemo. When someone would speak Ojibwe, they would be speaking Ojibwa, and so that's how that kind of came to that. And so Anishinaabe is what we refer to ourselves. So it's kind of more, you find out like Anishinaabe artist. And I think each artist is different. They might like refer to them as Diné instead of Navajo, or as Dakota instead of Sioux, or, different, like they're going backwards into more correctness in richness and deeper understanding. It's a more beautiful way, I think, when people learn and appropriate properly, changing names of things and changing names of teams. And for instance, that little coffee shop in Duluth, Minnesota, it was called Beaners before. And
right.
It was offensive. That 10 years ago, there was not a Hispanic population, although people knew of it, but now there is in Duluth, and people are more aware of this sensitivity. And the good owner there, rather than fight it and say, this name got to stick, it's 10 years tradition, he said, oh, I was wrong. I didn't mean anything. I'm changing it. And it's beautiful, that reappropriation and appropriating the same correctness. And I think that awareness is what you're getting after, Paul, by asking.
No, absolutely.
So Anishinaabe artist is, a native flute, maybe that would be the referral.
Well, when I was a kid, we had if I can use the phrase, Chippewa babysitter named Nancy. And she was actually deaf. She was a very interesting woman. And of course, growing up, in our territory up there on the Iron Range, there was, quite a few Native American characters and people, but you'll remember this, and it's probably not a really in these days a politically correct thing, but at the end of the 1800s, the beginning of the 1900s, up on the Iron Range, both the Indian population and the Finnish population were very looked down upon, and so there was a lot of marriages between Finns and Native Americans, and they used to call them Findians. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And part of it was the Finns were looked down on because they brought all these great socialist ideas from Finland, and then when they started working in the mines, they wouldn't even let two Finlanders work next to each other because they figured that these were the guys that were starting to try to unionize the mines and everything else, so which they were, as a matter of fact, and bless them. So, Keith, we've got so many things to talk about with a couple minutes left. You said you're going out to New York soon. What's going on out there?
There's a Native American Music Awards, and this year it's hosted by Wes Studi and Mickey James. And Wes just won an Academy Award for Lifetime Achievement for Native actors, and he's a musician, and at the end of the award show, we're going to put together a song called Fry Bread and sing it. And it's pretty easy with chords and things. And he can. And so I'm enticing him to be the narrative. And I do a little political rant about fry bread being illegal and a fry bread messiah and, and people rising and things like that, kind of to get at the subject. And I say, the Fry Bread acts like the Fry Bread Removal Act and the Trail of Grease and things like that, a brutal history, but I obviously lead people gently, to a brutal truth.
Right.
And I think that's where you start teaching history. Sometimes you start from today and move backwards in understanding, just as we did today in understanding an Anishinaabe artist.
Right.
And we move backwards in history. And it gives us a better understanding.
So you came here, you were babysitting your adorable grandkid, and who I met when you were doing the video. Tell us a little bit in 45 seconds or less how you're influencing him to appreciate his background and culture.
Well, first of all, his other grandfather is the late, great Will Sampson, the native actor that for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Really?
So I always keep him aware of that,
Right.
and his son is too. But even this morning I was playing guitar, and I got him kind of interested using the technology and strings, and he's playing notes and things.
Yeah.
And And I'm
He's a
singing-
handsome kid, man. He's going to be in the movie someday, I'm telling you.
Singing to him.
Yeah, we've got Keith Secola, an old friend of mine, great Native American activist and musician. We're going to play some more music and hear more stories after these messages.
Power Radio Hour. Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Welcome back to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metza. My guest and old buddy Keith Secola is going to grace us with arguably one of his most famous songs he wrote. He's playing it live, called Indian Cars. Take it away, Mr. Secola.
I've been riding in my Indian car, the pound of the wheel in my brain. My dash is dusty, plates are expired. Please, Mr. Officer, let me explain. I took 169. I exit, I gotta make it down to the Wall of Power show.
Play this whole song, man.
Down
Whole
by
thing.
the riverside, looking for a sugar, riding in my Indian car. Oh God. Car's dented, the radiator steams, one headlight don't work, the radio can't scream. I got a sticker, says Indian Power, I stuck it on my bumper, it holds my car together. We're on a circuit of an Indian dream. Don't get old, just get younger when we're flying down the highway, riding in our Indian car. Oh God, hey, your head ahead, your head ahead, your head ahead. We're on a circuit of an Indian dream. We don't get old, we just get younger when we're flying down the highway, riding in my Indian car. Here's a riff that Paul Metza showed me.
All right, Keith Secola, that was Indian Car. We are going crazy today. We're on Facebook Live on the AM 950 stream, and we're also going live on the Paul Metza Facebook page stream. And I got a lot of cool cats. Scott Schuler, Donnie Lamarca, Rick Shevchak is watching from right out there. My buddy Pete Sanford, good accordion player. So we're just going to do this because we can. We're taping the show for the Wall of Power Radio Hour, which will air in a few weeks. Keith, tell us about that video you have. There's several different performances of that song on YouTube, but there's one that's damn near, you got 1 million views on it.
I think there's a few of them. We did one with the language translation. It was really cool, and an animator that's kind of a hip young animator that's out there in the L.A. scene. a few things maybe people have put together. So I'm not really sure what's out there. And it's like you encourage that, like it kind of gives people fun and people take ownership of it.
Well, the one I think it was a couple of years ago, I swear to God, it had 800,000 views. I believe it was live with dancers. Does that ring a bell, Keith Secola?
It could be. I've done a few TV shows with that and had a few choreographed dancing scenes, and I've included them in shows and things. And I do work with dancers. When we were up north, we just did a show at the Cook Woods Auditorium. And
cool!
The Sampson brothers, famous hoop dancers, and they really graced it. And the audience up north are really getting used to seeing these kind of things.
Right.
It's kind of beautiful.
Well, like we talked a couple weeks ago, you invited me to sit in with you at the Astor, which I was honored to do. My brother, of course, my brother John Metza and my guest here, Keith Secola, are very tight, have been for 45 years. And so I kind of keep track of Keith Secola through my brother and stuff. But really in this last year, Keith, when I've been more closely monitoring what you've been up to, I have to say how proud I am as a friend and as a fellow artist, how much I appreciate your growth and what you've accomplished. It's amazing.
Well, it's kind of what we've done today. If you see, they just released that Parkland in Florida, the Parkland High School videotape you were part of.
Yeah.
And part of that proudness, it was kind of, when we were in Florida, I'm thinking, this looks like a guy I know from the Iron Range. And it turned out to be Paul. And we were at a real good VIP gathering with Peter Yarrow's daughter and Pete and all the Florida
Sonny
people.
Earl, my harp player.
And everybody was
my singers.
there. And Michael Franti and his gang and people like that and Paul. But the Iron Range Proud emerged, that proudness said, okay, I'll treat them with a lot of respect, because it kind of emerges when you run into people down the road and you realize that there's no anymore anything, there's just going forward.
Right.
Like that kind of thing.
Well, my buddy Billy Alcorn, who is a great songwriter, ended up moving to Nashville, ended up driving bus for just about everybody, from Lemmy of Motorhead to Billy Gibbons, and now he's doing at Alcorn Custom Case, building road cases for everybody from Stevie Wonder to Metallica. He told me something, I think you might agree with this, because you've been banging around as long as I have, Keith Secola, is that there ain't no such thing as a big time. There ain't no big time.
Oh, yeah.
It's just day by day, getting the gigs done. But it was so fun because I picked up that gig. It was a kind of a Parkland healing concert for Parkland High School, and then kind of a get out the vote. And the people that put it on were actually parents of that had lost children at that incredibly sad day in Parkland on Valentine's Day the year before. But so I got the gig through, they were looking to get this artist in New York. They got a hold of an old publicist of mine, and he said, you got to get a hold of Paul Metza. He's all about this. So then when I walked in and looked across the room and saw you, it was like, right on, man. I know that guy. And then you remember you went out and you got your guitar. Sonny got his harps, and then we the drinks were flown. The dinner was great, and then we led that was it Bethany Yarrow, Peter's daughter?
Yeah, we were doing
we led it in a sing along for about 45 minutes. We kicked that weekend off, I thought, big time.
And the ride home from the concert was
that was amazing.
Ride. I think it was because we needed a lot of healing, because we just experienced what people were going through
with those actual kids.
Power, yeah, and our whole experience down there was part of that, letting music be the shield for us.
I wish by that point of the night. It was really crowded, so we all got on the bus, and then there was, most of the musicians that had played driving back to the hotel in traffic, and everybody had had a couple of cocktails, and that sing-along was phenomenal. I'm sad my phone had run out of charge because, well, maybe it was good it didn't run out of charge because that was just our moment together as musicians and people, you know.
And such an influence. We had peace poets from New York City.
Yeah.
We had gospel singers from North Carolina.
Yeah.
Some of the cats that you had in your office.
Mary Harris and Randy Starr Hudson, my great gospel singers.
Yeah, Randy was that was fantastic.
Yeah.
And the combination and Bethany and all her vocalist friends. And
you know, just about 2 weeks later, I helped put together a show called Winds of Change, which was run by my friend Reverend Nancy Nord-Benz, who runs the Protect Minnesota. They're the Let's Get This Gun Right thing together. And so one of the students from Parkland came up and spoke at that. So it was 2 weeks later. It was still nice. Wow. The circle was then complete. We've got Keith Secola on the Wall of Power Radio Hour. He brought his guitar, he brought some flutes, and he brought his good vibe, and he's leaving town tomorrow. So we're going to get as much music out of him. Hey, Brent Sari is watching up there out the Iron Range. We've got about 2.5 minutes here. Keith, play us out with something.
All right. See, we're born with the positive feelings about us, and then somebody says something negative, and we hang on to it, you know.
Right.
So let's cast it out. Sits and smokes a cigarette and ponders the aftermath. Wonder what life will bring down that forbidden path. Drags feet across the floor as she heads out the door. Fred Quick won't admit she can't give no more. No, you can do yes. Yes. No, you can't do this radio show. You can do yes. This is for Brent.
Yeah, all right.
Contemplating plain intent, intending contemplation. Time to wait, speculate, reflect on instant wait. Wants to do what he wants to oppose the destination. Like an Eden must proceed a permanent vacation. You can do yes. Yes. You can do yes.
Wow. That was Keith's call. Keith, what was the name of that song?
Life or Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. Man, that's a beautiful sounding guitar. We've got Keith Secola on for the whole show tonight. We're going to get to everybody he's played with, and we're talking Neil Young. We're talking U2. You name it. Buffy St. Marie. Keith's played with them. Originally from Parkville, Minnesota, that nice little spot between Mountain Iron and my hometown of Virginia, Minnesota. We're on Facebook Live on my feed, AM 950 Facebook Live feed, because Keith and I are connected to the universe through the interwebs. We're recording this today in the basement of the AM 950 studios with Eric Nelson, located in Eden Prairie, which is neither Eden nor Prairie. We'll be right back.
Wall of Power Radio Hour.
Keith Secola, that was great. You were back with the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, Paul Metzett. Keith, let's. I'm going to brag a little bit for you, and then you can just fill in the blanks here. But over the years, you've shared stages with U2, Neil Young, Buffy St. Marie. You hung out with Jerry Garcia, who told you he really dug your stuff. What was Jerry's line to you?
Hey, Keith, don't worry about it, man. Good music falls through the crack all the time, Like, just keep on playing, man. Don't even, in 10, 20 years, they're going to get it. America's going to get it.
So, when we hooked up again a couple weeks ago, I told you who I remember when I was in 7th or 8th grade. We went up to, I believe it was Nett Lake. We took a class trip to see the great Floyd Westerman. And that was the first time I heard when Custer Died for Your Sins. And I love Floyd because he reminded me of one of my first heroes, Richie Havens. And tell us about your experience about hanging out with the great musician, guitarist, songwriter, and actor Floyd Westerman.
I was studying American Indian Studies at the University of Minnesota here. They had a program, American Indian program, and they would invite native singers and speakers all the time to the university and do a concert. And Floyd was doing one year, and I was like in a junior. I even volunteered to pick him up at the airport,
Right.
And me and my friend George Morrison, we picked him up in his car. And
in your Indian car?
Yeah, in the Indian car. And Floyd, we picked him up, and he pulls out something from his pocket. He goes, "I've been waiting 5 hours for this." That was back in the day. And,
right.
And we played up on the steps of Northrop Auditorium.
Cool.
And he came into town. He really didn't have a guitar. I said, "I have a couple guitar, Floyd. We could go over to my pad." And we did. We rehearsed, and hung out with him. And I just follow him when he was playing. And what he liked is that I could follow him. I wouldn't come in on one. I'd follow him.
Right.
Because he might not come in on one.
Right. He's like Lightning Hopkins like that.
So he'd come in wherever he wants to. And he liked that because I would listen to him. And so he asked me that night, "Well, why don't you just, when I play, get up and jam with me, And so I did. A few songs, we did that together. And that kind of started a friendship. And maybe 2 or 3 times he came to the university, and we did shows together like that informally. And after one show, I think he was feeling pretty good because he gave me a couple $100, and back then it was like, what?
Yeah, it's like $800.
Yeah, it was this wonderful feeling, and then to be part of it, it was very inspiring. And our friendship grew very organically, very, it was like I became a friend with him, and like in that way. And we became friends that way. And so we learned a lot about songs. We hung out a lot. He would love to sing Chris Christopherson, and he was just releasing a Chris Christopherson album before he passed away. And he just released a Johnny Cash tribute album.
Wow.
So he was into Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson. He liked covering songs, and he loved singing songs at the end of the night. We go to the hotel room and sing. And Floyd was like that. He was always an activist, and he had quite a sense of humor.
We've just got about 3 minutes left. Would you do that version in your native language of This Land Is Your Land?
Oh, yeah. I can.
Keith Secola, this has been so much fun. It's always great to see you,
This
too.
is Floyd and I would always do this one. Anishinaabe, Gibabaya, Ogiwa Banda, Kakekikishe, Gamashkwa Wakoko, Gashkadanane, Yakin Gabi Oshitamagoya. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Gulf Stream water to the Redwood Forest. This land was made for you and me. Oh, we in the dark him, oh, we get dark him, Medawi Emma. Galigami, Gamshwa Wakoka, Gashkadanane, Yakin Gabi Yoshitamago. And Floyd would always get up and he'd joke, be such a joker, and he goes, I'll translate that for you. This land is my land. This land ain't your land.
I love it.
Get off of my land. Go find your own land.
I love it.
One time an elder came up to us afterwards and she goes, I don't know if that translation was right. And we apologize for speaking so badly, but even just using humor and things as a joke. But Flood was like that, and that was his famous one.
Oh. So, Keith Secola, tell the people out there in the Wall of Power Radio land how they can track you down and get your music.
Secola.com is my website. And I know I'm like on Spotify and all the other things out there. Pandora, you can stream, but you can go to my website and actually buy music from there, and very accessible these days. And also on a label called Don Giovanti out in New York. I got my Circle anniversary vinyl out through them, and a kind of a collection of deluxe version of songs that I've collected throughout the years.
Well, you're an amazing human being. In fact, I was honored. I'm starting an Indiegogo campaign here in the next week or so, and I read a poem with you playing flute behind, so you go to paulmetza.com and find that. Keith Secola, have a great time. You rest your time here in the Twin Cities, and bless you, my brother. Beautiful. Thanks for listening to the Wall of Power Radio Hour. This is your host, and I produce the show, Paul Metza, engineered by the great Eric Nelson in the basement of AM 950 Radio Studio in Eden Prairie, which is neither Eden nor a prairie. We'd like to thank our guest and my old buddy, Keith Secola. God, we had a ball. Catch Keith the next time he's in town. I've got an Indiegogo campaign. I'm raising money to put out a book of poems called Alphabet Jazz, along with a spoken word CD backed with some of my hippest and coolest musicians in town playing behind those poems. Go to paulmetza.com to find out more about that. The campaign will be going on until the first or second week of December. And then on December 23rd, Holiday on Ice Cubes, my 40th anniversary at the Parkway Theater. Go to parkwaytheater.com or paulmetza.com to find out about tickets. And like my dad used to tell me, remember to be kind and make someone happy.